Dick York vanished from Bewitched in 1969, and the studio fed America the line that it was exhaustion. But his family guarded a darker truth for decades. In 2003, hidden set footage finally emerged, revealing the real story: a sudden collapse, a scream that echoed for 20 minutes, and a gag order that silenced York forever. By the time he died in 1992, the Hollywood star had been reduced to scrubbing toilets just to eat. His wife had found more than 200 pills stashed throughout their house. Now, his son is finally sharing what the cameras never captured. He was born on September 4, 1928, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as the nation still reeled from the Great Depression. His father, Bernard, scraped by as a salesman. His mother, Betty, sewed clothes and later ran a tiny beauty shop to keep the family afloat. Amid the struggle, something unusual surfaced. A Catholic nun at Dick's parochial school heard something rare in the boy's voice: a rhythm, depth, and precision that didn't fit the gritty Midwest streets. She pulled him aside and urged him to treat his voice like a musical instrument. That nudge ignited everything. When the family relocated to Chicago around age 10, they were fleeing poverty, not chasing fame. But Chicago became the perfect accident. Radios crackled in every kitchen, and Dick absorbed shows like Fibber McGee and Molly, mimicking every cadence until the voices lived inside him. By 15, he wasn't just another kid with a hobby, he was the star of the national CBS radio hit That Brewster Boy. One day he was imitating stars from a cramped apartment, the next, kids across the country were imitating him. He wasn't the first Joey Brewster, 2 actors had come before, but when Dick took the mic, something locked into place. His timing, tone, and ability to turn plain dialogue into magic stood out. It wasn't formal training, it was instinct. Sponsored by Quaker Oats and beamed into millions of homes, the show made a broke Chicago teen a household name before he finished high school. Money flowed in, but stability didn't. The Yorks had lived too close to the edge for too long. Bernard's sales jobs remained shaky, some nights dinner was a rumor. Dick hustled every gig he could find, never trusting the cash would last. He never forgot the fear of eviction. Years later, when he owned property, he refused to kick out tenants who fell behind. He let them stay, even when it drained him dry. His early years weren't shaped only by poverty and radio scripts. A health scare nearly derailed everything. Some accounts mention polio in his teens, others are vaguer. Whatever it was, he emerged fragile in ways he hid. The real catastrophe struck in 1959 on the set of They Came to Cordura. While pushing a handcar with Gary Cooper, the muscles along his right back tore with a sickening snap. They just gave way, he later said. That injury launched a lifetime of chronic pain, painkillers, and decline, but the seeds of vulnerability were already planted. Confusion lingers about when his radio career truly began. Some say 15, others point to 1941 when he was 13. Either way, he was too young to shoulder a national show, yet he did, and those paychecks pulled his family from despair. Then politics ended it. In 1945, the writers of That Brewster Boy, Pauline Hopkins and Owen Vincent, were accused of communist sympathies for sending aid to anti-Nazi fighters. Cold War paranoia exploded. The ad agency demanded Dick denounce them. At 17, he refused. I didn't fully understand, but I stood with them. Loyalty cost him the role. The show was recast and rebranded without him, but he bounced back quickly, joining Jack Armstrong, All-American Boy as Billy Fairfield for 6 steady years. He also voiced dozens of other programs: Grand Marquis, Meet the Meeks, My True Story, racking up hundreds of episodes in nearly 400 distinct character voices, from grizzled elders to dreamy children. It wasn't just acting, it was vocal craftsmanship. On one of those sets, between takes, he met 17-year-old commercial reader Joan Alt. He was 23. Her parents despised him, broke, a nobody, a threat. They threatened arrest. So the couple fled at 2 a.m., drove to Rockford, Illinois, and paid a justice of the peace $5 to marry them in secret. Gossip columns feasted. Her father disowned her, her mother wept for days. Dick simply held her hand through the storm. Television arrived in 1950 with Lights Out, an NBC horror anthology. In The Man Who Couldn't Die, York delivered an 8-minute live monologue on eternal life. It rattled viewers so badly that NBC received 47 complaints. One woman claimed her husband couldn't sleep for a week. The network adored it, critics raved. By 1952, he joined Going My Way with Gene Kelly, earning $750 an episode. But Catholic advisors hated his irreverent humor. He nearly got fired over a confession booth joke. Kelly intervened. York's refusal to stick to rigid scripts made directors nervous. Retakes piled up, and he earned a reputation for being hard to control. That reputation worsened after a failed 1953 pilot, The Marriage. Executives said he looked too young to play a husband, then leaked his audition tape as a studio joke. For 6 months, doors slammed before he could read a line. The humiliation nearly ended him. Then came the Jack Benny program in 1954. 20 million watched York as a hitchhiker whose ad-libs stole laughs from Benny himself. During rehearsal, Benny erupted, "This is my show." York's part was slashed to 3 minutes, and their collaboration died. At 27, York wasn't supposed to eclipse established stars, but he did. 3 auditions later, he beat out 200 actors, including a rising Tony Curtis, for a Universal Pictures lead in Someone Stole My Gal. The $850,000 gamble paid Dick $15,000, 3 songs, and an 18-second kiss with June Haver that took 14 takes. Tabloids snapped them lunching together, rumors soared, box office jumped 23%. Fan mail surged from 0 to 400 letters a week. Hollywood had a new heartthrob, but the town turns cold fast. In 1955, on Republic Studios Stage 7, a chase scene in the naked street went wrong. A prop dynamite charge real black powder exploded 4 feet from York. Eyebrows gone, cheek burned, metal shards embedded, 23 stitches. Co-star Farley Granger was knocked unconscious. The studio lost $75,000 in delays. York filed a $12,500 claim, but the bigger legacy was painkillers, Demerol, codeine in small doses at first, for burns, for aches that never quit. By 1958, York's talent threatened egos like Bing Crosby's. When Going My Way became a series, Crosby, 55 and protective of his image, forced 27 script changes. York lost 15 minutes of screen time, 3 songs, and a raw confession scene. Lighting and close-ups were altered to flatter Crosby and dim York. Variety still praised York's magnetic, natural presence, fueling more backstage resentment. Operation Madball, 1957, was pure chaos. York's Private Hogan threw a burlesque bash with real Minsky strippers, including Lily St. Cyr. 8 seconds of topless footage sparked outrage. Censors demanded cuts. Columbia released clean and dirty versions. Texas, Georgia, and Utah banned both. The studio lost $400,000, but fan mail hit 600 a week. Harry Cohn dubbed York box office gold, rebellious, edgy, bankable. July 23, 1959, changed everything. Filming They Came to Cordura in 118-degree Arizona heat, York and Gary Cooper lifted a 400-pound handcar. On take 3, Cooper let go, York kept lifting alone. His L4 and L5 vertebrae compressed with a crack like a breaking branch. He collapsed, screaming. They gave him aspirin. 3 hours passed before anyone realized he couldn't stand. 97 days in a Phoenix hospital, $18,000 in bills, morphine, Demerol, experimental drugs. Dependency stopped being subtle. Against warnings, York signed for the Flying Fontaines, 1960, a circus drama requiring aerial stunts. He performed them all, injured spine and all, swallowing pills between takes. Audiences saw a daring trapeze artist. They didn't see trembling hands or the slanted board backstage where he lay flat. Lover Come Back, 1961, was supposed to be breezy rom-com fluff with Doris Day and Rock Hudson. York was downing up to 20 Vicodin a day. He nearly collapsed mid-kiss with Day. The studio buried the incident. He began shrinking from 6 feet 1 inch, hunching, fading of the Wheeler Dealers, 1963, meant another bar fight, no stunt double, no padding. York's scream was real, the crew froze. His back was now irreparable, yet the charm lingered. State Fair should have been easy. Instead, scandal erupted over rumored affair with 21-year-old Anne Margret, leaked photos, hotel gossip. MGM panicked. York had been married to Joan since 1951. Painkillers blurred boundaries between impulse and intent. Public silence, private chaos. Later that year, The Hook, a Korean War film about executing a POW, demanded raw vulnerability. York started therapy mid-shoot just to function. It was his final leading film role. The picture flopped, his body followed. TV kept calling. Between 1957 and 1963, York guest starred 7 times on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, never meeting the master himself. Suspense suited him, so did masking pain. The Twilight Zone's The Purple Testament, 1960, cast him as a captain foreseeing soldiers' deaths. On air date, his co-star and director died in a plane crash. Fiction and reality bled together. A 1961, Route 66, episode mirrored his life too closely, a man in constant pain pushing forward. He kept a flatboard in his trailer. In 1964, over 200 actors auditioned for Darrin Stevens in Bewitched. The trick: mimic Elizabeth Montgomery's nose twitch midline. York nailed it. Producer William Asher hired him instantly. But York made a fateful choice. He disclosed his 1959 back injury. Instead of recasting, the studio accommodated a hidden 15-degree leaning wall, ground floor dressing room, custom spinal chair. Honesty seemed noble, but the injury never healed, it only worsened. By Season 2, 1965, mornings began with 15 heavy-duty pills, Percodan, Demerol, unapproved muscle relaxants. Every line was delivered through chemical fog. Directors spent hours editing slurred takes. During A is for Aardvark, York's legs buckled mid-sentence. Samantha, what have you done? Crashing into a bookshelf. The raw footage terrified execs. It was locked away until 2003. The official line, exhaustion, behind the scenes, Agnes, Moorhead, and Dora, became his secret supplier, hiding pills in costumes and props, passing them as magic ingredients. In Nobody's Perfect, 1966, York swallowed 23 pills, his dog barking scene blurred acting and collapse. Moorehead later confessed guilt over her own son's war death, helping York was penance. She logged every pill and fall in a diary uncovered years later. In 1967, during Samantha's Good News, a scripted pratfall onto hardwood became real agony. The medic warned against it. Producer Asher threatened replacement with Dick Sargent. York did the stunt. A disc slipped, sciatic nerves ignited. He screamed for 20 minutes. They carried him out. 4 weeks, Darrin was on business trips, Samantha conjuring absurd excuses. Fans noticed. In 1968's Samantha's French pastry, pneumonia spiked York's fever to 104 degrees. The scene required climbing scaffolding with pies. Rumors said Sargent was waiting. York climbed. Halfway up, he blacked out, faceplanting into fake pastries. Rushed to Cedars-Sinai, 6 days on machines. Visiting, Asher found York in tears. "Bill, I can't fake it anymore. The magic is gone. No farewell, no party." A confidentiality clause barred public discussion of addiction for a decade. His final episode aired March 25, 1968. He officially left in March 1969. Chicago's Inherit the Wind was meant as triumph. Mid-courtroom speech, his spine gave out. He crawled, the curtain fell. The 20-night run collapsed. He owed $50,000 he didn't have. Stage career over. By 1970, Demerol hit 40 pills daily. Rehab under a Palm Springs vacation, life failed fast. In 1971, CBS offered a MASH pilot guest spot. York arrived slurring, eyes vacant, fired after 2 hours. His agent dropped him over bad checks to multiple doctors. Irony struck, Anison hired him for a painkiller voiceover, $3,500. He sounded underwater, a glitched take mispronounced relief as reef. Deal cancelled, he owed $5,000. Joan found over 200 Demerol pills hidden in coffee cans, costumes, books, vacuum bags. She left with the kids. York took a $40 per week Van Nuys motel and a $96 per week mail delivery job. Joan returned only after unaffordable therapy began. By 1975, smoking wrecked his lungs. At 46, doctors gave him 6 months unless he quit everything. They sold their $200,000 Hollywood Hills home for $100,000 to cover $78,000 in bills. Oxygen tanks scarred carpets. They bought a modest West Covina apartment building for rental income, but York refused to evict late tenants. It slipped away. By 1976, the family was on welfare. In 1986, they moved into his late mother-in-law's tiny red bungalow near Grand Rapids, Michigan. The man who once earned six figures cleaned toilets for survival. His $650 per month SAG pension barely bought food. "I went from star to scrubber overnight," he told interviewers. Teeth gone, weight yo-yoing, he no longer resembled Darrin Stevens, yet in 1988, from an oxygen-tethered recliner, he founded acting for life. No money, just time. He cold-called radio stations, warehouses, officials. That year he clothed 15,000 people with military surplus, shipped mattresses, secured juice and pantyhose for shelters, while his family owed $20,000 in back taxes and sometimes skipped meals. 1990 teased a Bewitched reunion, but insurers balked at his health. A $10,000 cameo offer was declined. Too risky. By 1991, daughter Mandy sank into depression watching her father fade. Desperate, the family sold his Emmy-nominated radio tapes, his legacy, for $2,000. They lived solely on his $650 pension. In 1992, experimental emphysema treatments were offered. York refused, writing Joan, "I've taken enough from the world." He wanted any money for the kids' education. On February 20, 1992, he died at Blodgett Memorial Hospital, age 63. He left 5 children, a wife, and unpaid debts. The funeral 2 days later at Peterson Funeral Home in Rockford was small. Few Hollywood faces appeared. Reverend Gary Davis officiated. He was buried in Plainfield Township Cemetery. No grand marker, just silence. Bewitched reruns earned millions. York's family saw nothing. His posthumous memoir, The Sisa Girl and Me, exposed how he was cut out. His kindness, refusing evictions, skipping treatment, cost them home, security, savings. Today, son Chris safeguards the legacy. The 60th anniversary Bewitched Blu-ray features his stories of a man who smiled through unbearable pain and gave when he had nothing. Documentaries recast York not as a fallen star but as someone who put others first. New fans discover the show. It ranks number 564 in streaming, with over 1,200 active Reddit members. Yet visitors to his quiet Michigan grave often find only stillness.